August 25th, 1944. A convoy of 132 trucks stretched along a dusty French highway, their engines roaring through the pre-dawn darkness as they raced against time itself. Behind the wheel of the lead vehicle sat Corporal James Washington, a 19-year-old mechanic from Detroit who had never driven anything larger than his father's pickup truck before the war. Now he commanded a massive GMC 6x6 loaded with 10 tons of ammunition, medical supplies, and gasoline, desperately needed by Patton's Third Army advancing toward the German border. The speedometer needle trembled at 45 miles per hour, dangerously fast for these narrow European roads, but Washington and his fellow drivers had received orders that left no room for caution. American forces were advancing so rapidly across France that conventional supply lines couldn't keep pace. Traditional military logistics, the methodical movement of supplies through established depots and rail networks, had collapsed under the speed of Allied success. What Washington didn't know as he gripped the steering wheel in the French countryside was that he had become part of history's most audacious logistical experiment. An operation so unprecedented that German intelligence initially refused to believe their own reconnaissance reports. The Red Ball Express, named after the railroad term for priority freight, would transport over 400,000 tons of supplies across 700 miles of liberated Europe using nothing but trucks, determination, and drivers who redefined what seemed possible. The mathematics of modern warfare had changed forever on June 6th, 1944. As Allied forces stormed the beaches of Normandy, they initiated a supply challenge that dwarfed anything military planners had previously contemplated. Each infantry division required 650 tons of supplies daily. Armoured divisions consumed 750 tons. Artillery units burned through ammunition at rates that would have been unimaginable in previous conflicts. By August 1944, American forces in Europe needed 20,000 tons of supplies delivered every single day just to maintain operations. Traditional supply methods had worked adequately during the static warfare of World War I, where front lines remained relatively fixed for months or years. But the mobile warfare of 1944 created logistical demands that existing systems couldn't meet. Railroad networks across France lay in ruins from years of strategic bombing. The few functioning rail lines ran in the wrong directions, built to serve German defensive positions rather than Allied advances. Ports like Cherbourg and Le Havre had been systematically destroyed by retreating German forces. Into this crisis stepped Lieutenant General John C. H. Lee, Chief of the Services of Supply for the European Theatre of Operations. A methodical administrator who understood that modern armies moved on logistics as much as courage. Lee faced a problem that seemed mathematically impossible. American forces were advancing eastward at rates of 20 to 30 miles per day. Every mile they advanced stretched supply lines further from the Norman beaches where most materials still arrived. The solution emerged from American industrial culture rather than military tradition. The United States had spent 2 decades perfecting long-distance trucking as railroads declined and highways expanded. American drivers understood continental distances in ways the European counter from Wempam Tirant 20 Breaths May Chi Fravor Anti Tom One. The Force Titra Interstate Commerce Commission had regulated trucking operations that routinely moved cargo thousands of miles across varied terrain and weather conditions. Lee's staff calculated that a dedicated truck convoy system operating around the clock with carefully coordinated schedules could deliver the tonnage that advancing armies required. The concept violated traditional military logistics doctrine, which emphasized security, redundancy, and careful staging through established depots. But traditional doctrine had never contemplated the speed of mechanized advances across hostile territory. The name Red Ball Express came from American railroad terminology, where Red Bull trains carried priority freight that took precedence over all other traffic. These trains ran on expedited schedules with minimal stops, delivering time-sensitive cargo across continental distances. The military adaptation would apply the same principles to highway transportation, creating dedicated trucking routes where supply convoys took absolute priority over all other traffic. On August 25, 1944, the first Red Bull Express convoy departed from the supply beaches of Normandy, carrying 89 tons of desperately needed ammunition to forward units near Chartres. The route covered 230 miles of French highways, much of it through territory that had been under German occupation just weeks earlier. The drivers, most of them African-American soldiers assigned to segregated transportation units, had received minimal training in convoy operations or European driving conditions. What they possessed instead was something more valuable than formal training: industrial experience. Many had worked in Detroit's automotive factories before the war, understanding mechanical systems and troubleshooting problems under pressure. Others had driven trucks for civilian companies, navigating difficult routes and maintaining schedules despite mechanical failures or weather delays. They brought practical knowledge that proved more useful than textbook military procedures. The convoy system that emerged over the following weeks represented a complete reimagining of military supply operations. Instead of the careful, methodical movement of supplies through established depots, the Red Bull Express created a continuous flow system. Trucks loaded at Norman supply beaches would drive directly to forward supply points, unload their cargo, and return for another load without intermediate stops or processing delays. The statistics of this operation would have seemed impossible to pre-war military planners. At peak capacity in September 1944, the Red Bull Express operated 5,958 vehicles, carrying 12,342 tons of supplies daily across routes that stretched from the Norman coast to the German border. These trucks covered over 6 million vehicle miles monthly, consuming 300,000 gallons of gasoline just to deliver gasoline to forward units. The human cost of maintaining these schedules was extraordinary. Drivers worked 20-hour shifts with only brief rest stops. They navigated roads that German forces had mined or booby-trapped during their retreat. Mechanical breakdowns occurred constantly due to overloading and continuous operation, requiring roadside repairs under combat conditions. Yet the convoys maintained their schedules with reliability that exceeded peacetime commercial operations. Private First Class Eugene White, a driver from Chicago's South Side who had worked for a trucking company before his draft, described the experience in letters home that were preserved in family archives. "The roads are terrible, full of holes from bombing and fighting. We drive without headlights most of the time because Jerry aircraft might still be around. The trucks are loaded way beyond what they were designed to carry, but somehow they keep running. We eat while driving, sleep when we can, and fix whatever breaks down on the side of the road." The scale of mechanical challenges was staggering. Each GMC 6x6 truck in the Red Bull Express carried loads exceeding 10 tons, nearly double their design capacity. The combination of overloading, continuous operation, and poor road conditions created maintenance requirements that conventional military motor pools couldn't handle. Drivers learned to perform complex repairs using improvised tools and salvage parts from disabled vehicles. By September 1944, the Red Bull Express had evolved into something unprecedented in military history. A completely flexible supply system that could adapt to changing battlefield conditions within hours rather than days or weeks. When Patton's Third Army made an unexpected advance toward Metz, Red Bull convoys diverted their routes overnight to support the new direction of attack. When the First Army required additional ammunition for Operations Aachen, additional near-A trucks joined the convoy system within 24 hours. The psychological impact on German forces was as significant as the material impact. Wehrmacht intelligence officers monitoring American supply operations reported truck convoys of impossible size operating on schedules that seemed to defy logistical reality. German commanders who had planned defensive strategies based on anticipated American supply shortages discovered that their opponents possessed virtually unlimited material resources delivered with unprecedented speed and efficiency. Colonel Wilhelm von Schell, operations officer for Army Group B, documented his growing bewilderment in classified reports that would later be captured by Allied intelligence. The enemy appears to possess transportation capabilities that exceed our most optimistic estimates of their industrial capacity. Our interdiction efforts against their supply lines produce negligible results. When we destroy bridges, they bypass them. When we crater roads, they repair them overnight. Most disturbing, their truck convoys operate with precision that suggests unlimited fuel reserves and replacement vehicles. The German assessment revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of American logistics philosophy. European military tradition emphasized careful conservation of resources, detailed planning, and methodical execution. The Red Ball Express operated on principles of overwhelming abundance and adaptive improvisation that German planners found incomprehensible. Technical Sergeant Robert Johnson, a convoy commander from Philadelphia, who had managed delivery routes for a commercial bakery before the war, embodied this distinctly American approach to problem solving. His unit maintained detailed logs that provide insight into the operational reality of keeping supplies flowing under impossible conditions. September 15th, lost 2 trucks to engine failure near Reims. Cannibalized parts from disabled vehicles to keep remaining trucks operational. Delivered full load only 4 hours behind schedule. September 18th, bridge destroyed by German demolition charges. Found alternate route through farm roads, arrived at destination with cargo intact. September 22nd, convoy, attacked by German aircraft near Verdun. No vehicles lost. Continued mission after brief. Delay for medical evacuation. The adaptability that Johnson described became the defining characteristic of Red Ball operations. Unlike rigid military procedures that required approval from higher headquarters for any deviation from established plans, Red Ball convoy commanders possessed authority to make immediate decisions based on battlefield conditions. This flexibility proved crucial as German forces attempted increasingly desperate measures to disrupt Allied supply lines. October 1944 brought the ultimate test of the Red Ball system's resilience. As Allied advances slowed and German resistance stiffened, the distance between Norman supply beaches and frontline units stretched to over 400 miles. Traditional logistics calculations suggested that such extended supply lines would become unsustainable, requiring the establishment of intermediate depots and transfer points that would slow the flow of materials. Instead, the Red Ball Express adapted by expanding its operational scope. Additional truck companies joined the convoy system, bringing total vehicle strength to nearly 6,000 trucks. Routes were extended and multiplied, creating parallel highway networks that could maintain supply flow even when individual roads became impassable. Most significantly, the system began operating as a true 24-hour continuous flow operation, with convoys departing Norman beaches every 30 minutes around the clock. The mathematics of this expanded operation strained comprehension. Daily fuel consumption for the truck fleet alone exceeded 400,000 gallons, requiring dedicated tanker convoys just to keep the supply trucks operational. Tyre replacement became a critical bottleneck, with individual trucks requiring new tyres every 3,000 miles due to overloading and poor road conditions. Yet somehow, through constant improvisation and mechanical ingenuity, the convoys maintained their delivery schedules. Staff Sergeant Willie Davis, a maintenance supervisor from Detroit's River Rouge plant who understood mass production systems, revolutionized Red Ball mechanical support through innovations that military manuals had never contemplated. His maintenance teams established mobile repair stations at strategic points along convoy routes, enabling roadside repairs that would normally require return to depot facilities. Disabled trucks were cannibalized for spare parts that kept other vehicles operational. Most remarkably, Davis organized salvage operations that recovered and rebuilt trucks from battlefield wrecks, creating replacement vehicles from components that conventional military logistics would have written off as total losses. The human endurance required to sustain these operations challenged every assumption about physical and psychological limits. Drivers routinely operated on 3 hours of sleep, consuming amphetamines distributed through official medical channels to maintain alertness during 20-hour driving shifts. The combination of sleep deprivation, constant mechanical stress, and enemy action created casualty rates that approached those of frontline infantry units. Yet morale among Red Ball personnel remained remarkably high throughout the autumn of 1944. Letters and diary entries preserved in military archives reveal a sense of purpose that transcended the physical hardships of convoy operations. These men understood that their driving skills represented the margin between Allied victory and logistical collapse. Every ton of ammunition delivered, every gallon of gasoline transported, every medical supply rushed to field hospitals contributed directly to shortening the war and saving lives. Private James Crawford, a driver from rural Alabama who had operated logging trucks in civilian life, captured this sense of mission in a letter to his wife that survived in family papers. "We may not be carrying rifles, but we are fighting this war just the same. Every mile we drive brings our boys closer to ending this thing and coming home. The trucks break down, the roads are terrible, and we are tired beyond description. But we keep moving because we know that somewhere up ahead, American soldiers are counting on us to get through." By November 1944, the Red Ball Express had transported over 400,000 tons of supplies across distances that exceeded 4 million vehicle miles. These statistics represented more than logistical achievement. They demonstrated that American industrial culture, adapted to military necessity, could overcome obstacles that traditional military science considered insurmountable. The same mass production principles that had revolutionized civilian transportation were now revolutionizing warfare itself. The impact extended beyond immediate military objectives. German prisoners of war questioned about American supply capabilities, consistently expressed amazement at the scale and efficiency of Red Ball operations. Many reported that witnessing American logistical abundance had convinced them that German victory was impossible regardless of tactical successes. The psychological effect of seemingly unlimited American resources proved as demoralizing to German forces as the material impact on Allied capabilities. Intelligence reports from this period reveal that German high command devoted increasing attention to disrupting Allied supply lines, recognizing that conventional battlefield victories meant nothing if American forces possessed unlimited replacement capacity for men and materials. Yet, every attempt to sever Red Ball supply routes failed due to the system's inherent flexibility and redundancy. The failure of German interdiction efforts revealed a fundamental truth about industrial warfare that would reshape military thinking for generations. When Oberst Heinrich Müller's engineering battalion destroyed the bridge at Châlons-en-Champagne on November 3, 1944, Wehrmacht intelligence predicted a minimum 48-hour delay in Allied supply operations. Instead, Red Ball convoys diverted to alternate routes within 6 hours, maintaining delivery schedules that German planners had calculated were impossible to sustain. Müller's after-action report, captured by Allied forces 3 weeks later, documented the growing German realization that they faced an enemy operating under completely different logistical principles. "We destroyed what appeared to be a critical choke point in their supply network," Müller wrote. "Our calculations suggested this would force a significant reduction in enemy material flow. Instead, American trucks appeared on roads we did not know existed. We carrying loads estimated exceeded vehicle capacity, operated by drivers who seemed to require no rest or maintenance support. The Red Ball Express officially ended operations on November 16, 1944, as advancing Allied forces established more conventional supply lines closer to the front. Yet its legacy extended far beyond those final convoys rolling through the French countryside. These drivers, mechanics, and convoy commanders had proven that American industrial ingenuity could overcome any logistical impossibility when necessity demanded it. Their tireless dedication kept Allied armies supplied during the most critical phase of the European campaign, demonstrating that victory belonged not just to those who carried rifles, but to those who carried the supplies that made victory possible.